In this video, you create an arched window family using solid modelling tools such as Extrude and Sweep. Additionally, a profile family is loaded and used within a sweep to create a timber frame. Go ahead and open up the window family. The model opens in View 1, which is a 3D view. You can clearly see here that we have an arched window. We already have a void cut into the wall host, and you can see here that we actually have a sweep defining the main structure of the window. You'll see here we have a rebate where a glazing unit is going to be fitted. Let's begin by creating that glazing unit. We'll first open up an interior elevation. In the project browser, under the elevations folder, double click on interior. We'll then zoom up on the window, and we're going to create this glazing unit with an extrusion. On the create ribbon in the forms panel, select extrusion. On the Modify Create Extrusion context ribbon in the Draw panel, you can see here that we have an option to pick lines. Let's select this. And on the options bar, we'll ensure that lock is checked. This will ensure that our extrusion stays locked onto the references that we pick. Let's hover our cursor over this reference here, and I'm going to press the Tab key to find the loop of references. We can then left click, and you'll now notice that we have our sketch automatically created and constrained to those references. Before we accept the extrusion, if we look into the properties palette, we can see here that we can set the material for this particular extrusion. I want to associate this to a parameter that we've already got created. So we'll select Associate Family Parameter, and in the Associate Family Parameter dialog, we'll select Glazing Material and select OK. We'll finalise the extrusion by selecting the Finish Edit Mode button. The extrusion will be created at a default depth of 1 foot. To understand this better, let's go ahead and open up the reference level floor plan. In the project browser, under Floor Plans, double click on Ref Level. If we then zoom into the window, we can clearly see our new extrusion that we've created. The extrusion needs to be constrained in between these two reference planes. You'll also notice that we have shape handles on the extrusion. I'm going to use this shape handle here to extend the extrusion. I've extended the extrusion just by an arbitrary value, and we're now going to use the Align tool to make sure that this extrusion is constrained to those reference planes. On the Modify ribbon in the Modify panel, select Align. On the Align panel, we'll ensure that Lock is activated. We'll then begin by selecting this reference plane here and this face of the extrusion. You'll notice that the extrusion is aligned and automatically constrained to that reference plane. We'll repeat that for the other side of the glazing unit. So we'll select this reference plane here and this face of the extrusion, and again it's aligned and constrained. We'll then release the Align command by selecting Modify. If we now switch back to the 3D view, we'll now notice our glass in place. To help us visualize this better, we'll change the visual style to realistic. On the View Control bar, select the visual style and set this to realistic. You can now clearly see our glazing unit modelled. We'll now create our moulding around the window using a sweep. To do this, we'll select the Create ribbon, and on the Forms panel, we'll now go ahead and select Sweep. On the Modify Sweep context ribbon, you'll note here that we have two options to create a path. The path is where the profile will be swept around. We can simply sketch this, or more useful is the ability to pick a path. We can actually then pick references that we already have on the extrusion. So let's go ahead and select Pick Path, and we'll start to select the edges that form the loop. You'll notice that the first edge we've picked also defines an insertion point for our profile. So we'll go ahead here and select Finish Edit Mode. And now we need to load in and utilize our profile. So in the Sweep panel, we'll select Load Profile. We'll go ahead and select the Timber Molding Profile family and then click Open. Again, in the Sweep panel, in the Profile drop-down menu, we'll select Timber Molding Profile 6 inches by 1 inch. We'll now notice that the profile is previewed on the model. However, we can see clearly that it's in the wrong orientation. If we look onto the options bar, we'll note here that we can offset it in the X and Y direction. We can also flip the profile or change the rotation angle. In our example here, we'll rotate this negative 90 degrees. We can now see that the profile is in the right orientation. To complete the sweep, we can go ahead and select Finish Edit Mode, and we'll now see that our sweep has been created. The sweep is still selected, and in the Properties palette, you'll notice once again that we can associate the material to another family parameter. So let's do this, and we'll associate this to the frame material. So the moulding will match whatever material we set for the frame. If we now zoom out and deselect the sweep by pressing Escape, we can now see our newly created moulding. We'll now go ahead and repeat that for the other side of the window. So we'll right mouse click, we'll repeat Solid Sweep. On the Modify Sweep context ribbon, we'll go ahead and select Pick Path. Again, we'll select the 3D edges. Again, noticing that the first edge we've picked defines the insertion point. We'll go ahead and select Finish Edit Mode. Of course, now the profile is already loaded in, so on the sweep panel, we can go to the Profile drop-down menu and simply select Timber Moulding Profile 6 inches by 1 inch. Again, we'll need to actually rotate this profile. In this case, it will be 90 degrees. Once again, we can actually finish the edit mode. And with the sweep still selected, again, we can associate the material. So we'll click on Associated Family Parameter. We'll select the Frame Material parameter and click OK. Again, we'll press Escape to deselect the sweep. And we can now see the two sweeps have been created. Finally, we'll check the parametrics for our newly created window. To do this, on the Modify ribbon in the Properties panel, we'll select Family Types. In the Family Types dialog, we can clearly see here that the height of the window is currently set to 4 feet and the width is set to 3 feet. Let's now amend these values. So I'm going to change the height to 5 feet and we'll just reduce the width to 2 feet. We'll go ahead and select Apply, and we can clearly see that our extrusion and sweeps have reacted to that change. We'll also try changing the wall thickness, so we'll go ahead and select OK to the Family Types dialog. We'll select the wall, and in the Properties palette in the Type selector, we'll change the wall from generic 6 inch to generic 12 inch. And we can clearly see now that both our sweeps have moved and the extrusion representing the structure of the window has also increased in size. Finally, we'll test our glazing thickness. So once again, on the Modify ribbon in the Properties panel, we'll select Family Types. And we can see here we have a parameter controlling the glazing unit thickness. Let's increase the thickness here to 1.5 inches. We'll then go ahead and select Apply. And again, we can see that our glazing unit has updated. Okay, go ahead and select OK to the Family Types dialog, and we've now created our window.